Hi, everyone. This is Dawn Richard, also known as The Awakening with Dawn, and this is the Wake Up to Real Love podcast, where we share stories of struggles and triumphs in love, sex, and relationships, along with expert advice to create more conscious connections. I am really honored and excited today. I'm going to do something a little bit different starting with this podcast. I have Rod Gordon here, and the next podcast is going to be with his fiancee, Martina Hughes. And then the third podcast is going to be the two of them together to talk about creating more conscious relationships and partnerships. And Rod and Martina, I talked with them before. They have a beautiful, beautiful relationship, and they show up and they've done so much work on themselves, and they help other people, bring this beautiful awareness and authenticity to all of their interactions. So I'm super honored to have Rod here today to start off this 3-part podcast series. Rod has dedicated his life to transformation and growth. He leads relationships and sexuality workshops with his fiancee, Martina, and supports men and women to cultivate the love, sex, and intimacy they desire. Rod has studied for 30 years in the areas of meditation, tantra, spiritual healing, martial arts, and the art of spiritual and sexual intimacy. Through his dedicated personal practice, Rod has developed a unique capacity for seeing people. He holds space with presence, intuition, and creativity, empowering men and women to create the transformation they seek in their lives. Rod is committed to being of service, deepening his own practice, and fiercely loving his partner. He continues his own study and training with world-class leaders and teachers. And I am so excited. We're going to have an amazing conversation today, Rod. Welcome, Rod Gordon.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is very exciting.
Hello. When I talked to you and Martina, a month ago, I said, I can see why the two of you were drawn to each other. You both have this same beautiful, transparency and authenticity and real commitment to your own personal growth, as well as to each other's growth in your partnership. So I'm super excited to hear about how that's evolved for the two of you as a couple and for both of you individually. And I actually I start off with a sort of an icebreaker question. And I know that you're going to karate class after this podcast. So I wanted to ask you how karate has transformed your life and what it brings to you as far as your own personal growth and development.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting question. Martial arts is a really powerful tool, I guess, in terms of cultivating specifically masculine qualities like discipline, focus, concentration, clarity. There's a lot of qualities that get cultivated through the discipline of practicing a martial art. So it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter what the martial art is. It's the dedication to the process. And there's lots of other side benefits to that. But one of the things that I think is really important about martial arts is the safety that it creates for the people around me. If I have a capacity for martial arts, for violence, with a healthy conscious awareness around it, then what happens is if we're out somewhere or even if we're at home, there's a sense of safety that my son can feel, that my partner can feel, that friends can feel being in my presence, which means something relaxes in their nervous system. Something changes in a person's body when they feel safe. And what that does is that opens them up to allow them to feel more love, for love to flow through, their body, through them as a person in a way that it can't if they don't feel that safe. So personally, the practice of the discipline, the focus, I think one of the things about martial arts and meditation is that as men, we have to show up when we don't want to. Like there's a lot of times where I just think, oh man, I don't want to go to karate today. I'm too tired. It's too hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's too hot. It's too cold. It's too whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yet and it's the same even with meditation. I'll be like, oh man, I don't want to sit there and be still today. I don't want to meditate. But it's having that disciplined practice of showing up when I don't want to is one of the most powerful tools a man can actually bring to his relationship, to his intimacy, in terms of like, if when a man walks in the door, say to his home and his partner's upset, he feels that. Like often you can feel that before you see
Before you
your
see it
partner.
or hear
There's
about
a
it.
tension in the
Yeah.
air.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, like there's always been that part that feels that, goes click and goes, oh man, there's a part of me that wants to get out of here, that doesn't want to
Run,
show
quit.
up for that. Yeah, yeah. Like it's like, oh, women's emotions. Oh crap, I've got to get out of here. Like I've got to run. And so there's a part of me that's terrified of that. So having that practice of showing up when I don't want to, then my body, my nervous system knows that, ah, I want to run right now. And this is when my partner needs me the most. She needs me to be present. She needs me to bring love to her. Like, and that's the thing. It's like in relationship, when love and openness, compassion, sensitivity is most needed, it's often not available, like in ourselves or in our partners. But my partner's hurting, so she might be angry or frustrated or sad or scared or having, you know, a series of whatever emotions. Like for me, I kind of have just one at a time. It's one emotion. So like the practice of like feeling my body wanting to run and knowing that, no, I need to show up now. I need to be present. I need to be there. I need to hold her. I need to love her. And I need to be able to bring that love, even though fear is present and I want to run. How do I soften my body, relax, and then open and love her when she needs to be loved the most? It's very, very easy to love someone when they're loving you and everything's going good and you
Right.
know it's all rainbows and unicorns.
Right.
That's not when it's most needed. It's nice and it's great and it's wonderful and it's you know it's not real to be in that the whole time. So having that practice of showing up when I don't want to, that's part of the art of, well, sacred intimacy, of making a relationship sacred, about magnifying love in myself and in my intimate partner, like bringing that to the surface of our relationship and bringing it into conscious awareness so that I'm consciously aware in that moment, like, wow, okay, I need to show up now. I need to love my partner. I need to be here and hold her. And so that's bringing it into the forefront of my consciousness, my awareness. And so having a martial arts practice is practicing that, you know, 2 or 3 times a week. Having a meditation practice is practicing that daily for me. So it's like, there's always a sense of practicing to be the best version of myself. And so martial arts for me helps me be a better man, helps me be a better partner, a better father, a better lover, a better everything. So there's so many facets to it. So very little of it is it about the kicking and the punching and the cool
Right.
outfit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you, when you were talking about you're creating this sense of safety for your partner and your son. Um, I wanted to ask you about, how does it help you create a sense of safety for yourself? Because to me, I think that's where it
Mm,
starts. When you're feeling safe within yourself, you
mm.
can show up being that safe place for your partner and your family.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it there. You said being the safe place, and it's being that safe place is, yeah, it is for me. It is for my partner, knowing, like having some thought, idea, belief, whatever, that I can, you know, protect or defend or, you know, my family and keep them safe in some way, brings like a sense of confidence and
Mhm.
also brings love to the surface. Like for me as a man to be able to protect my family or to hold that space, it feels like my gift of love, or one of them, you know, to my family. So part of the experience of that for me is I feel like I am loving my family. I feel like I'm loving my partner. I'm loving my friends by being able to hold that quality in my body, that quality of being able to practice, you know, a martial art in some capacity. So
Did
for
did
me,
you?
it's gone.
No, go ahead, finish.
For me, it brings a sense of confidence,
Uh-huh.
uh, peace, and sense of relaxation. Like I find having, and I'm not like a particularly skilled martial artist. Like I go to karate and get my ass kicked, but it's and that's kind of fun. But it's it's about more than that. It's not about what I can do or what I can't do. It's
Mhm.
about having that confidence, like within myself, that, you know, even approaching, if there is a situation that is getting heated, being able to feel confident about, like, oh yeah, I can handle this. I can approach this situation being so relaxed and so calm that it can just diffuse. Whereas if I'm afraid and I'm tense and I'm agitated and I'm trying to diffuse a situation, then it's most likely going to escalate. Whereas
Mhm.
if I'm more relaxed, the deeper I can relax into my body and approach the situation, then the less likely there is to even be a conflict. I think one of the ironies and paradoxes of martial arts is the more you do it, the more you practice, the less you ever need to use it.
Yeah, because your energy has completely shifted. You know, it's like you go from, uh, and I sort of think about this, you know, when men were the hunters and the gatherers, you know, it was either
Yeah,
fight or flight, right?
correct. Yeah, yeah,
And so it's either that aggression, that power over, or flee, get the heck out of here.
yeah.
And really, when you have, I've never done martial arts, but I'm a dancer,
Yeah,
so I have, you know, a lot of body awareness,
yeah,
and
beautiful.
and I
Yeah,
feel like it's sort of the same sort of thing, like really staying present in the moment, whatever's going on in your body, and sort of
absolutely.
dropping that reactivity,
Mm.
and really, it's almost like you have to be an observer of yourself.
Yep. Yeah, it becomes like an equanimity, not needing the moment to be any different, whether it's tense or not tense, or
Uh-huh.
there's upheaval or pleasure. Like it doesn't really matter.
Because how I, when I was, you know, reading and sort of watching things about you and Martina to do some research, I I thought about how how did you learn what it was to be a man in the world as you were growing up? Like, what
Mm,
messages did you receive from your own family of origin about how to show up as a
mm,
man, and how have those
mm,
messages affected, you know, your own transformation?
yeah, right. Um, like my family, like my dad, really, really strong in integrity. Like in, you know, we were taught, you know, as from little boys, like you treat women well, you treat them with respect, you like, you know, you don't lie, you you know, your honor your values, like, you know, truth, honesty, integrity. You show up, even when you don't want to. Like if you say you're going to do something, you're doing it. Like that was the kind of presence dad brought to the family. So he was a policeman, so with
Ah,
and he'd studied law, so he was like really strong in those qualities, but he was also very loving and gentle. There was a softness present to him that was compassionate and allowed space for us to be humans, to be boys, to be men, um, to grow. He didn't hold us like to be anything in particular. Like, and I think at times, like I probably challenged him more than my brother because I'm probably in lots of ways more like my mum in terms of I'm creative and I'm not academic at all. And he was really academic, but with that, the values that he instilled in us, that for me created a foundation that I could actually build on. And that was really, really powerful for intimacy and relationship, because being trustable as a man is absolutely paramount to creating, you know, a safe, stable, loving relationship. And so I feel like I had a really solid foundation with him in terms of the example that he set and how he held us, you know, to those, and how those values, I guess, were transmitted, you know, to us. It wasn't just it wasn't do as I say and not as I do. It was like he lived that way as well. Like he would work 6 or 7 days a week. Like I know, like my dad's values were that he did not want us to experience the childhood he did. He was 100% committed to creating the best life he could for my brother and I. And he 100% did that. Like he nailed it. So just that living example of like, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to commit everything to it. Like working 6 or 7 days a week, sometimes more than 12 hours a day,
Wow.
to provide for our family. Like that was what he wanted to do. And he did that. Like, and so he nailed it. So it's kind of like the example that he set was as powerful, if not more powerful than, you know, the words, but he had both. So for me, I feel like from my family point of view, I was set up really powerfully and really beautifully to learn things that I needed to know without knowing I was actually learning them.
Right.
Mm.
And so what prompted your own transformation? Like, I know that you said that you struggled in previous relationships. And so
Yeah.
how because even though you can come from good examples, you
Mm.
still have your own challenges and struggles to overcome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so like every relationship failed up until this one, which is pretty obvious. And I'd like this one to not fail. It's my intention for
Or
it
you
to
could
not
say
fail.
they were just learning opportunities and they happened to end.
Yeah, that's true. And for me, like how I am as a man and how I'm hardwired, it's either failure or success. Boom, it's black and white.
Black and white.
Yeah, it's and there's lots of value to that too. Even though it drives, I think, Martina nuts at times
Uh-huh.
because I really am black and white. Um, and so like those it got to a point for me with those relationships where what I recognized was that I didn't have the skills that I needed to build the relationship that I knew or felt, intuited, believed like was possible. And
Mhm.
so at that point, I just said, right, that's it. No relationships. Study. What is it that I need to learn? And like previously, like I'd worked as a hairdresser for 30 years. So I'd spent like 8 to 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, working predominantly with women. So
Mhm.
I was very sensitive. My feeling and intuitive capacity was well cultivated. Um, Women made sense to me, like men, and in lots of ways, men still don't make sense to me, but women in lots of ways make perfect sense to me. Like
Mhm.
there's this sense. But what I did in that process is I very much emasculated like myself. And I realized that as great as I could connect with people and as great as I could connect with, you know, with women and in relationship and in intimacy, there was still something missing.
Mhm.
And so it was like, how do I find this missing thing? Like what's missing? And so I sort of went on a mission to cultivate the skills that I needed to actually become the man that I, you know, always wanted to be and dreamed of being, but also to be the partner that I always wanted to be and dreamed of being, and create the relationship that I just felt was possible. It just, like, I looked around and I saw a lot of relationships, and in my whole life I never saw one that I ever wanted to emulate or create. And
Mhm.
that felt really sad. And I thought, I can't follow any of these societal, cultural based structures because they just don't work. They don't
Mhm.
work at all. And so they're not working for so many people. And currently, the measure of success for a relationship is if you're married and you haven't broken up. Like, that's a really low bar. That's more a
That's a
testament to,
low bar. That's a really low bar because a lot of people
yeah.
stay together despite awful, awful relationships.
That's where I was going. Like that's the
Yeah.
yardstick. But then I see the people that are still together, and I see two miserable people that are taking opportunities to snipe and pick and dig at each other, like that's not going to cultivate love or evoke the best out of a person. So it's kind of like, yeah, I need something else. I need something more. This isn't it. So I just set about studying at that point. So it became those failed relationships, as I interpret them, became a catalyst to sort of explore deeper, explore more. What else is actually out there besides what I'm being shown in my life and in books or TV or movies or shows or whatever? Like there's just this, and the more I dove into it, the more I could see how abusive the whole structure actually is. Like it's horrendous. Like it really is horrendous the way men and women are portrayed, the way they speak, treat each other, the innuendo, the hidden stuff that's actually happening and driving so many things that people think are authentic, behavior or acts of love that are really just selfish, and power hungry maneuvers or strategies in relationship. Like it's really
like manipulations and hidden agendas and all those kind of things.
Just how people can undermine each other with words and the way they say things. There's such things that are considered normal can be so abusive. Like once there becomes an awareness of the subtle energies of love, or the subtle feelings, and how important intention is, and tone, and how we speak and how we breathe, and start to sort of see more and more and more and more. And then it becomes like, in some ways it's really overwhelming, the way things are, because it's like my God, like how do we shift this? Like there's so much work to do here, and it's kind of it hurts a little bit. Like it's sad to see that and to feel that. So it's,
well, I think there have been lifetimes and generations of a lot of patriarchal ideas of power over and valuing people differently, and putting societal and societal, cultural, and personal expectations on other people that the other people never signed up for.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what did you, I mean, this is why your and Martina's work is so important, because you are helping shift all of these paradigms of
God, I hope so.
Yeah, God, I hope so. Right. For me, for me too. I mean, this is why I'm doing this podcast, because these are the conversations that we need to have with each other to say, this doesn't work anymore. It hasn't worked for a long time. And there are all of these paradoxes that we're trying to manage. There are all of these expectations that we're trying to live up to that aren't really realistic. There are all of these like missing pieces of this big puzzle of life and love, and just your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, like, because you said I felt like I was missing stuff. So I went and I studied. So I want to know, what things do you feel like you are missing, and what things have you found?
So sorry, the
internet
froze.
went. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't hear a single word you said. Sorry.
That's okay. I said, what you said.
Would you please ask me again?
Yeah. You talked about missing things, like you didn't know what was missing, but you knew things were missing. So what things were missing, and what things have you found?
Okay. So what was missing was my understanding of what it means to be a man, but also like the understanding what masculine qualities are. And that's what was missing. So qualities like the capacity for leadership, direction, presence, purpose. Like there was qualities that were like, I think for me, like specifically because I worked as a hairdresser, I saw so much, abuse, and so much, so much damage that's been caused by men. And so there was a sense of like shutting down and all, anything about myself that was masculine, I guess is the word I want to use, but like that's such a tricky word to use. So
Yeah.
for lots of reasons, because there's so much around the whole masculine feminine conversation, and I don't want to pollute the environment, but the qualities that were missing were specifically masculine qualities. And because I'd seen so much of that, I'd shut down anything in myself that I thought was, masculine in that capacity. It felt like to me, like working as a man with women, it kind of felt like almost that it was like offensive to be a man. It was like I'd want to
Hide.
leave yeah, it's like sort of shrink down and just be like, okay, yeah, I'm not like other men. Well, I never was like other men anyway. I never really fitted into a specific box, but it was kind of a sense of that it's not okay to be a man. Men are bad. Men are patriarchal. They dominate and control, and they do all these bad, horrendous things. So there was a sense in me with that I certainly didn't want to be any of those things. But there's also a lot of really beautiful qualities that men have, and capacities that are just shamed at this point in our time and in our culture. But there's ways to actually wield those swords with love so that they're actually of service. And that was what was missing, was the awareness of like, how do I show up and be a man in the world without being a macho dick? And I also don't want to be like the super feminine guy that friend zones himself all the time and is, emotional and weak and wet and floppy and untrustable. So
Right.
how do I do that dance between the two? And so to do that dance means I need to be able to embrace all those other qualities and to embody them in a way that is authentic and true, but that magnifies love. Like there's plenty of ways that men can show up in the world and be a man and use traditional masculine qualities in beautiful ways that actually serve and help our partners to experience more love. So it was a lack of awareness of my own ability to show up and actually be a man, to trust myself, to know that I'm not going to do the wrong thing. That's all I really ever needed, is to recognize that part of me. And so once that happened, then I could start, and I was willing to embody and embrace those parts of myself. Then I could explore being a whole man instead of just aspects or parts. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense to me, because I feel like women do the same thing, for other
Okay.
for other aspects. It's like, men, you're only allowed to show up in the parts that are acceptable, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so there's I don't know, there's so much shaming of men's sexual desire, masculine qualities, like, it's even, yeah, opening a door for a woman. Like that's a beautiful thing to do for anybody. But then
Anybody.
all of a sudden it's like, oh, should I be doing that? I don't know what I'm meant to be doing anymore. Like that's spam. Am I being a
Right.
chauvinist? Like, am I
Right.
disempowering her? Like,
Right.
so it's really diluted and polluted. But so men, what I experience is they go, oh, that's bad, so I won't do it. So they
Right.
don't do anything. So it's just like, oh, no, I won't do that. Shh, I won't do that. And they just start
Right.
cutting bits and pieces off,
Right.
and then end up lost, not knowing, well, they don't like me when I'm sensitive and feeling. They don't like me when I'm being a man. That they're just like, they don't know what to do and end up lost in between. But there's ways to walk that path authentically and lovingly without getting lost in that way, without having to cut aspects off. It's like anything can be used and anything can be abused. And so
Right.
it's learning to show up and love and be that man. And sometimes it is going to hurt and sometimes it isn't going to work, but the outcome's not so much the point. The point is more like showing up authentically and lovingly. And if it's not received or it's not wanted, that's okay too. Like, it doesn't matter. The person doesn't want you to open the door for them. Close the door. It's all good. But men tend to not do that.
Yeah, you said something I don't even remember. I don't even know if you remember saying this, but you said wield the sword
Yep.
in love, in loving
Yeah.
service. And
Yes.
I just thought, isn't it sort of a military saying that's to serve, honor, and protect?
To serve, I think it is a military saying.
So
I
I feel like that's the part of the man, of the
Yeah.
masculine,
Yeah.
that's what makes your partner, and I'm talking about heteronormative, because this is my experience,
That's my
um,
experience too. Yeah.
to serve, honor, and protect. That's where you create the ultimate sense of safety, because you are stepping fully in your own power to make sure that you're a safe container and
Yeah.
that you show up as a safe container for your partner. And
Yeah.
so, as long, because I think a lot of people, they have intentions are not enough. You can say, well, my intentions were good, but the way that you showed up was not making me feel safe, honored, and protected.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like all of these aspects of us, both masculine and feminine, they both have light aspects and shadow aspects. There are sort of good, or I don't like to label good or bad, but more challenging aspects, and more acceptable aspects. And
Yeah.
this is the part of men showing up, because I feel like a lot of times, because all of these messages are mixed for all of us, right? So we're trying to figure out what serves the highest love,
Yeah.
what serves my highest potential. How can I show up as my best possible self? How can I show up for my partner as my best possible self, instead of all of the shadowing, triggering aspects that don't make any of us feel safe or secure or loved or accepted? I feel like this is all of the parts that we are trying to bring to light.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's a tricky time to bring those to light because of the whole conversation. And I can't talk intelligently to the whole patriarchal conversation, but because of the history of men being so abusive
Mm-hmm.
and controlling and domineering, over women, over people in general,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very tricky and sensitive time to actually talk about embodying the qualities of that as strength, because there's so much reaction on
Right.
the other side of that. But there really is lots of beautiful qualities that women are really missing out on a lot in men, and men are missing out on a lot in men by not being willing to those areas, or to recognize that there is a lot more like going on, that there is a lot more at play, but it's also not being taught. Like, God, I had to train for 4 years not for 4 years, I went to a school, but there was you're training for 4 years in an apprenticeship to be like a hairdresser or a plumber. It's, we don't have even any study for like relationship or intimacy, or how to be a man, or how to be a woman, or how to, show up in the world in any form of relationship, no matter what the gender structure is. And so there's a sense that we're fumbling in the dark in probably one of the most important parts of our life, because it's that actually creates more life.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like we're paying so much attention to so many things, and there's so little value in comparison to like that creative connection that we have with another person that we bring life into the world with. And so I think, like, to do that, we need teachers. And there is people out there, there is some really amazing, like, leaders out there in the love and sexuality space, but it needs to be across the board. So many people have learned from
bad teachers,
their family or the television. Like, there's, I've seen so many people mimic characters from television shows that they watch. Like, I've been in relationships, like, with partners who just watch a series of television shows and would at different times embody those characters constantly. And it was really interesting to watch. It's like, wow, you're actually learning how to be a person, a human, from this television show. And it's a sitcom. And it was like, that's not good.
Yeah,
that's really not good. Like, that's so
you're just
many
being a
people
character.
Yeah, yeah. And animating such unhealthy concepts and ideas in relationships that are quite, I don't even know where to start with it. It's just, it's sad.
Well, so how do you teach your son what it
How
is
do I teach him to be a man?
to be a man?
My son's 18 now, so he is a man. He's a beautiful young man too. Like, I teach him to be loving and respectful, to trust his gut and his intuition. So to embody what I would call, like, his own feminine qualities. So to encourage him and create space for his feelings, for him to express his emotions and to share and talk if he chooses to, or also respect his desire for space and to solitude and to process in his own way. For me, teaching him about integrity, like what it means to actually show up, for himself, for his partner, like if he's got a girlfriend, like, and how important it is to think about what it is he's going to say, and then when he says it, follow through with it. Like, the importance of creating.
Don't just say what's in your mind. It's like, wait a second, maybe I need to take some space because I might not say some things that will be very helpful to this situation.
Yeah, definitely. Like, the brain's an interesting thing. Like, at the core of it, it's designed primarily to keep us alive.
Right.
So
Survival.
Yeah, one of the things I've learned
Fight or
from,
flight.
yeah, and our brain has this amazing capacity to create what one of my teachers calls afflictive emotions, and we can think ourselves into an emotional frenzy. Like, I spoke to a friend recently, and he, one of his insecurities is his partner's having, an affair, but, like, they've got 3 kids, she's exhausted, she just wants to be on the couch on her own. There's no way that she's doing that, but his experience was that, he would think himself into a frenzy if he didn't get what he thought that he needed in the relationship, which is, it really highlights, like, our brain survival instinct. It's really quite primal, and it will create those scenarios for us to feel and act on, to be safe, to make sure that we're okay, that we're not going to get hurt, that we're not going to die. So our brain does all these crazy, interesting things. But then at some point, if we practice meditation, at some point we get to be, like you brought up before, that witness, and go, okay, well, here's me and here's my body and my brain, and it's doing this, and begin to experience it from that place. And so then there becomes an awareness over the body of, like, oh, I'm afraid right now. I feel heat rising up through my belly, through the front of my body. I can feel these sensations. And so bringing awareness, consciousness to the sensations in the body and being curious about them rather than reacting to them. Whereas if I feel anger rising and I react to it, I'm going to yell and scream and have a tantrum and do whatever I do when I'm angry. So, but if I'm conscious that, oh, there's the sensation of anger, and there's the tingles and the heat and the tension and the frustration, and okay, yeah, I can feel all those things in my body. And how do I want to be in this moment? What do I want to bring to this moment? Like, how can I show up to this moment as best I can? So, and that doesn't mean not failing, but it means doing my best version of animating and creating more love in that moment by not reacting to whatever
Yeah.
sensations are happening in my body. And so many reactions are habitual and unconscious.
Yeah.
And like one of the inquiries that I've been making, like over the last few months for myself, has been like, what if every part of who I am that I consider to be an authentic part of me was created from either fear or protection? And I know there's similar qualities there, but they're slightly different textures. And so I've been exploring, like, even like I'll be having a conversation and I'll feel the desire arise to make a joke. And it's like, why do I want to make that joke? There's a bit of discomfort sitting under there with this moment, with whatever this conversation is. Like, what if I just allow myself to experience discomfort for a minute? Okay. Oh, I feel vulnerable.
Mm.
I feel vulnerable, so I want to deflect.
Mm.
So is the humor that I have authentic, or is it deflecting? Is it protecting me? Is it me reacting to the fear of being vulnerable? And so exploring authenticity, exploring what's actually sitting under these habitual impulses. And when our habits are created unconsciously, we wake up one day going, who am I? How did I get here? Why am I even here? I don't like any of this. I don't like my life. I don't like this job. This partner doesn't suit me. What am I doing?
I
And
don't even like myself.
yes, yeah, I don't even like myself. And that's
Yeah.
because, we often create our life from that unconscious, habitual, reactive place. And so rather than choosing our behaviors because they're in alignment with our beliefs and our values, and we want to create more love, we're reacting to fear and to protection. And from that place, we end up walking a path that we don't really choose. We just unconsciously react until we end up somewhere going, oh my God,
Right.
who am I and what the hell am I doing? Because this is not who I want to be.
Right.
Like I've had that experience like more than once in my life. Like I really needed a cricket bat to the face to really wake up. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
what am I doing? Like, I hate myself. And I've been in that place like several times in my life. And it was through that process though that I realized that I could consciously create, who I am just by becoming more aware of the subtle feelings that are sitting underneath the impulses and the habits. And it's a very subtle exploration, but it's a beautiful exploration to starting these inquiries and having the intention is enough to create massive change in a person's life. But starting to explore these impulses, all of a sudden we can start to, rather than react, we can choose the words, the behavior, the actions, whatever's coming up or arising that's in alignment. Like if truth, honesty, integrity, and love are my values, then yelling and screaming and carrying on isn't really in alignment with that. But if I can go, oh my God, I am so angry and reactive right now, and say to my partner, I love you so much, but I feel so angry and reactive right now. I don't know what to do. I don't feel safe. Like, that's a very different response. And that evokes a
Yes.
very different response from my partner. Like, oh,
Yes.
really? Okay, let's just take a couple of seconds. Boom. Whole new conversation is going to come from that. There's all of a sudden love being exchanged because my partner's offering me that loving and compassion of like, you feel unsafe. Okay, what's happening for you? It's like, okay, well, and then we start exploring that. And so then what that does is that opens us both up to feel more safe. It's like, okay, I'm angry right now and frustrated, and you're loving me. You're bringing love to me, compassion, empathy, support. Like, this is when I most need it. And so it's like what we were talking about at the start of the call about showing up when we don't want to. And it's like, in that moment, I would much rather act angrily than say, oh my God, I feel so angry, and, actually live vulnerably in that moment by expressing like how I feel and that I feel unsafe. And so, yeah, it's that when we start consciously building from that place, we start choosing behaviors that are in alignment with our value system. And what that does is that starts to consciously direct us in where we want to go in the world and in life, and starts to create the human that we desire to be, whatever that is, rather
Well,
than unconsciously, habitually, randomly ending up somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's completely learning to respond rather than react.
Mm.
But you talked about so many layers along the way. You know, it's
Yeah,
slowing down. It's really going inward and sort of listening to what's happening in your body to
yeah,
give you clues about what it might be, you know,
yeah,
because you have all these triggers, right? And those are what cause the automatic habitual reactions. And
yeah,
you have to slow down enough and say, this is how I normally would react, but how do I want to respond? You know, who do I want
yeah,
to be in this moment? What do I want to what do I need to learn? What do I need to be aware of? What do I need to share? How can
mm,
I connect? And because each each situation can be an opportunity to either help the relationship or cause harm to the relationship, you know. So is what
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
doing in this moment, is this going to be helpful for me, for you, for us, or not?
Mm,
And so
yeah,
it really takes the accountability and responsibility all on you, because
yeah,
you can say, you know, well, you did this, or you made me feel, or you made me react, or you, and it's like, wait a
mm,
minute, what's going on for me? How am I
yeah,
showing up? What who do I want to be in this moment? And it's,
mm,
you talked about either fear or protection,
mm,
and I often say, you know, fear or love, because it's
mm,
sort of one or the other. It's moving me
mm,
towards whom I want to be, you know, my highest version of myself, or that
mm,
lower reptilian fight or flight.
mm.
um, but this I mean, these are huge conversations, Rod, because kids,
Yeah, like
you know,
we're
most
just
adults
skimming the
don't,
surface.
yeah,
Yeah.
most adults don't know how to do this. And
Oh,
so how do you teach your children how to do this? You know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
this is where that responsibility and accountability, I mean, I know I have been a big monster many times, and with my kids and my ex,
yeah,
and I would always, you know, after the whole aftermath, I would come and
yeah.
say, oh my gosh, I did not react in a way that I wanted to. You know,
Mm,
I want to take responsibility for it. I'm so sorry.
yep.
You know, I need forgiveness, and, you know, help me. This is something that I'm working with. I mean, it's all about coming back to you and slowing down that process.
It is, yeah. And like I think like one of the greatest gifts we've been given as humans, one of many, but is triggers. Triggers are a
Mm.
beautiful thing because
They're a
like
gift.
oh, they they are like for
I know.
me what I my exploration around triggers was that I started to realize at some point when I was quite young. Well, when I say quite young, like in my 20s, um, I'm 47 now. I'm really close to 50. It shits me. Just going to throw that out there.
It's the
So,
new
yeah.
30.
Oh, good. um, So when I think about like what I started to realize is the things that I was pissed off about that my partner was doing or doing to me,
Uh-huh.
um, I realized that I did. And so then my inquiry into that became like every time I was pissed off about anything, it's like, how do I do that? Where do I do that in my life? And what I found was that every time I was angry about anything, I do it in some area of my life. And quite often it was in different ways. So it was harder to spot. But as soon as I found it, my body would relax. I would feel a sense of relief. And that person that was doing whatever they were doing, when they did it, after that, I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel angry. It didn't bother me at all. So it's kind of like it became a really huge inquiry in my life as to this being angry, like if every time I'm pissed off about something, I still do it now. I inquire, how do I do this? Where am I doing this? And as soon as I find it, I feel that release. And then the beautiful part is then I don't need my partner to do anything to about that. It's completely like my own process. I can talk to her about that and say, like, I'll come and say, I feel really angry about this, X, Y, Z, but I can't see where I do it in my life. Can you help me? And like, so then we'll explore it together. But there hasn't been a single situation where I've felt angry about something that I haven't done that in some area in my life. So, if you're listening to this and you do feel triggered by your partner, I would highly encourage you to make that inquiry of like, how do I do that? Because for me, what came from that was freedom, that people are no longer doing things to me. Like it's neither here nor there, but people do. If I'm pissed off about it, it's like guaranteed that I'm doing it somewhere. If I direct my attention to that, make the corrections that I need to make for myself, I find that I'm released from the triggering or reactivity of that behavior or comment or whatever it is.
Do you think that those triggers are ways in which previous times in your life you either felt unsafe or insecure or abandoned or not taken care of or not acknowledged or honored or respected? I mean,
I think it's like, I need like all of the above.
yeah.
Yeah. And like a lot of them can be like passed down through family with complete unawareness.
Yeah.
Like, like in working in the relationship and sexuality space, like it's kind of like if you're a baby in a room and mum and grandma are there and a man walks in the room and mum or grandma's been abused and they go like this and clench, tighten up, it's like man in the room, like the baby's going to sit there and learn clench when a man walks in the room, clench when I'm working, and then go through its life attracting men that are abusive because that energetic clench, that tension, like around, say around men, it's like, I use this example in our workshops a lot, but if, say it's for a woman, if she's walking down the street, if she's confident, she's sexually alive, there's something that feels really big and powerful about her. And I personally find that very attractive, but that, it's kind of like, that's one quality of energy. If the woman who's been like, abused and is terrified is walking down the street, she's shrunken down and small. And I know you can't see me because this is a podcast, but imagine me shrinking down.
Yeah.
The kind of man that's attracted to the woman who's shrunken down and terrified and scared is very, very different to the man who's attracted to that expansive, powerful woman. Because a man who wants to control and dominate a woman is never going to control and dominate a powerful, expansive woman walking. Like that's not going to happen. So he's going to be like, yeah, I'm not going there. That's too hard. Oh, here's a woman. That's what I want. So there's that attracts like a predator almost. Does that make sense? It's like a wounded animal, or if you're a wounded fish, the shark's coming straight in for it. So they're very different energies, very, very different qualities, but they can be cultivated from childhood without awareness. So without those traumas, things that you said, and then we can roll through life wondering why we attract all these things. And it can be from something that we've cultivated from birth that we were never even aware of. And those things can be worked with and unraveled and worked with. Absolutely 100%. That's what we do. But there's lots of people that are sadly walking around having these lives that they don't know why they're having them, being triggered or being reactive or having these responses that they've done it their whole life and they have no idea why, and they can't remember what it was that created it. And they'll never know because they were a baby at the time. So like there's lots of ways that we can work with people to help support that. There is lots of people walking around going, this isn't my life. I don't understand why this keeps happening. I can't make it stop. Everything I do, I change my thoughts and it doesn't make any difference. And it's really sad, but all those things can create those triggers and they can actually be created without any awareness at all. just being around people that behave in particular ways, we can begin to embody those behaviors without even being aware that we're embodying them, and start attracting in, you know, all the wrong people, or if you're lucky, all the right people.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's why it's so important. I mean, this is one of the things that was really, that has always been very important in my life, is my own personal growth and evolution. And I know that's really important to you as well. And so how do you help people who are stuck and know that something's missing, but don't know where to go or what to do or where to turn or how to do it?
It's actually really easy. Like, the process is much simpler than people think. People think that, you know, you can go to a psychologist and help unravel, you know, unhealthy patterns in the brain and emotions and stuff like that. But quite often that doesn't create the change people are hoping for. It's kind of doing it in reverse. You actually need to change the body first, and then the emotions and the mental will sort of follow suit. Whereas if you do it the other way around, you won't get a full embodied change. Like, things will change, but not much. And people will have a sense of like, God, I've moved so far forward from where I was, but I'm not where I want to be. And so the easiest way in my mind to create effective, powerful, and permanent change is to change a person's body, because then it's changing from the inside out. Like, if I could do it right now with you, like, even for people listening to this, but I'm going to start breathing really shallow. And I want you to just notice what happens to your body when I tense my body. So I'm tensing the front of my body now, and I'm breathing really shallow. And can you hear and feel the tension in my voice? How does your body respond to this? Like, does it relax, or does it tighten up?
Yeah, I feel a tightness in
Feel
my chest
tense?
as well.
Feel that tension? All right. So now, like, how much do you trust me right now? Not much?
Not so much.
Not so much, right? So I'm about to change my breath. So now I'm breathing into my belly. I've relaxed the front of my body. My voice actually sounds like it's dropped down.
Yes.
So I've dropped down into my body. How do you feel in your body now as I'm talking to you? Do you notice any changes?
More relaxed.
Your body feels more relaxed. So straight away, you're going to respond to me different, because your body's more relaxed, because I'm more relaxed. So by helping people become aware of what's happening, like, you know, somatically in their body, in their breath, particularly the breath, that's going to help them create change. So we work with them on all the levels, but by working with breath, posture, relaxation, releasing trauma and tension held in the body, as well as that, you know, psychological and emotional aspect, that's how we work with people to create a more permanent change. But for me, it has to start in the body first, because if it hasn't changed in the body, at some point, the habits and the patterns will come back, because we're going to attract the same conversations, evoke the same responses from people, and just keep meeting the same challenges over and over and over again. Like, you talk to people that are struggling, it's always the same thing, just keeps happening to them. But once we start to make changes, like in the body, so if they're like, oh, okay, I hold tension in, you know, my chest or breasts and in my belly and my genitals or my hips, so like, oh, I'm going to relax that. I'm talking to this person and I'm going to relax my body, relax my body, relax my body. And all of a sudden, they start attracting in new people, different conversations, different experiences. And that creates massive shifts, because that all of a sudden means, you know, they don't have to manage reacting to these comments anymore, but they're not even happening. They've got these new people in their life. So it starts to, like, for me, if I change like any small things about myself, my whole life just like pivots on an axis to change immediately. So
it's like you change your trajectory and everything changes along with it.
Yeah. And like, for me, like, as a human, like, so many of my experiences throughout my life, I haven't had the awareness or capacity to process fully. Which means, like, they don't just vaporize and disappear. They're stored somewhere in my body. So, you know, if I've got tension in my hips, there's some kind of stored or locked down emotion in there. Now, by learning to relax that, I don't need to know what that is, but quite often what will happen is a series of emotions or feelings will arise, from that relaxation. All of a sudden, that tension's not trying to hold whatever it is in place. It relaxes, something lets go. And so then as that comes up, like teaching people to allow themselves to feel what's present and just to stay with it, because an emotion is just energy in motion. It wants to move. It wants to move. It does not want to stay there. So feel it. It might last like anywhere between, I don't know, 30 seconds and a couple of minutes, and it will go. But once it's felt fully, then what I find is that is a huge part of the healing process. Once it's felt fully, then it's released from the body. It's no longer there to come up again. So then it can be talked about and processed and understood, like from a psychological point of view, and then released. And then we have permanent change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like
we've gone through.
You have to release the charge that it has in your body first. So that's why karate or dance or walking or climbing or any kind of movement helps get you out of your head and back just into your energetic field.
Yeah, and it will. Like I always encourage, like men or women, if they're to have a daily practice, like that's imperative. If you're not practicing training for your relationship, it's never going to be what you want it to be. You wouldn't rock up and try and run a country with no experience or run a company. It's ridiculous. So you've got to practice. You've got to train. So, but movement and meditation, which are two things that are really, really powerful, pivotal, transformational tools. And I've heard it so many times in my life, and I remember thinking, oh, what a load of shit. What is sitting on a cushion going to do, and what is moving going to do? And it's like, I totally get that, but it's not until, like, for me, until I did it long enough
till you do it.
And I also had to be aware of the subtleties that were changing. Like subtle is significant. And it's like what my meditation teacher often says, subtle is significant. And it's a beautiful, beautiful saying, because it's those little subtle things. You add up 3 or 4 subtle things that are changing, you've got a whole new relationship on your hands. So learning to be sensitive and aware of the subtleties that are available to us is really, really important. But until we get still enough, we can't feel those. So if we've just been like watching television on Facebook, Instagram, and whatever other things,
having a drink,
their minds are busy and distracted. They're avoiding any kind of sensory experience.
Or numbing or
and sometimes those things can be really great coping strategies if life's really overwhelming, and like anything else, they can just totally destroy your life. But once people start to get still enough, and this is why meditation is important, then we can feel the sensitivity and the subtlety of what's actually happening in the moment, like in our own bodies. The more we can feel in our own bodies emotionally and sensitivity wise, the more we can actually feel and intuit what's happening in somebody else's body. Like our body has mirror neurons that run down the front of our body. And this is science, not esoteric stuff. I can't speak intelligently to it, but basically, like before, when I was in front of you and I relaxed my body and relaxed my breath, you said your body relaxed. So even though we're like on Zoom, we're still having that experience. If I tense my body, your body's going to feel tense. So there's that relaxation, but we have to get still enough to be able to feel those things, to be aware that they're there, and they are available to anyone who's willing to take that journey. But life our culture leads us in the opposite direction. Everything's about distraction and trying to get your attention. So when our attention is in all those places, our attention is not in our bodies. It's not in our partner's bodies. It's not feeling what's happening in our own body, feeling what's happening in there, feeling what's happening in our relationship. And there's so many beautiful, beautiful, beautiful things for us to experience when we get still. Like, yes, we can feel the subtleties of emotions and feelings that are in our body. Some of that we may not feel, but to the extent that rises, so does pleasure. And so does love. And so then you know, we become more sensitive, we feel more. That does bring more hurt and more pain, but then the sensation of love and
joy and
pleasure is
connectedness,
joy.
and yeah.
Yeah, it's so much more fulfilling, and the value that starts to come from that, the other things begin. Like for me, I wanted them to fall away. I didn't have to make them fall away. I just didn't want to do them anymore, because it really takes so much away from my life. And so I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to give that away. I don't want to take that away from my life. I want to create that love, that intimacy, that depth, like with my partner, and not have my mind distracted by trivial, mediocre crap.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think that is the thing, that you have to be willing to dive within your own depth and your own feelings, because so many people just try to avoid feeling at all. It's just that whole numbing. I don't want to acknowledge my feelings. They're too painful, or it's too difficult, or it's too challenging. I don't know how to deal with them. And
Mm.
it's really like giving yourself permission to have your full human experience. We are feeling creatures, we are energetic
Yeah.
people. And this is how you experience both your humanity and your divinity. It's having the full
Yeah.
spectrum at your
Yeah.
fingertips, as long as you're willing to slow down and be present with all of them, because each of them, whether they're more light or shadow, they all give us gifts. Even
Yeah.
the triggers are gifts. And
Absolutely, they are.
and
They're massive
how,
gifts.
yeah, how can we show up more and experience giving and receiving more love? How can we show up as the fullest expression of our greatest potential, unless we experience the all of who we are?
Yeah, that's right. I think we're not taught to do that, though. We're not
Mm-hmm.
taught to feel at the level that we can.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore it's unknown to
Mm-hmm.
people. So you can tell people about how amazing it is, but it's just empty words if they don't have an experience to relate it to. So
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to teach. It's in terms of that, like culturally it would need to be taught across the board. But I think inherently as humans, there's a sense for me that we fear that which we don't know, and
Right.
because that's unknown, there's no tendency to to lean into fear, which is, I feel historically there was in the past in lots of ways, like physically, like exploring the world and that, but now exploring our own inner world seems to
Yeah.
be like there's pioneers out there for sure, but there's also
You, for
a lot more
instance.
people running from that. Yeah, true, I guess. Yeah, I'm definitely one of them, but there's 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 so much running away from that, and so little um, awareness around the beauty that's there. But I think in terms of the leaders in our society, and by leaders I mean anyone from, politicians to famous movie stars or people that people look up to, there's, in those spaces I don't see people modeling that.
Mhm.
So people don't get to feel it, because what I find, if people see something and feel something, that's very, very powerful, probably more powerful than talking about it.
Oh yeah.
And so until our leaders are embodying, love, sacred intimacy, like to bring those truths forward to be felt and experienced by the general public, then people aren't going to know what's available. It's only when you go seeking that you start to find
Yeah.
really what's available out there. And like, it's, I think, yeah, whilst like when I look at like here in Australia and our politicians, it's like kindergarten. They're
Yeah.
arguing and yelling at each other and
Right.
talking over each other and abusing each other and calling them names and being underhanded, untrustable. Like, what they're being shown as the leaders, of our country is just, it's pathetic. It's such a terrible, terrible example of how to be a human being, and particularly how to be a man.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's I think when these other options for men and women in relationship are starting to be modeled, and people can feel that, they're going to, as soon as they see it, feel it, like in the relationship space, like where Martina and I work, it's like, yeah, I want that. What do I have
Yeah.
to do? I'll do
Yep.
whatever it takes. And
Yep.
so there is plenty of people out there doing it, but it needs to be modeled by the hierarchy of our culture. The leaders of the world need to be modeling, how to magnify love, how to show up for relationship, how to show up as a man, how to show up and lead the country. Like, how do you do that in a way that magnifies and creates a loving nation that's behind you and supports you? Like,
Yeah.
that can be done, but not by the current, monkeys that are doing these things. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, I think when that happens, then it's across the board. It would be embraced way more fully than what it is at the moment. But I think because subtle feelings and energies and emotions that can be felt in the body is such an internal process, it has to be felt. Talking about it's almost redundant,
Yeah.
even though we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And
But
we're still only just skimming the surface of tiny little topics. Like, there's so much stuff we could actually dive into around this, but
yeah. Yeah.
these are, I guess, what challenges people. So if this is what's challenging people, that's where, for me, we need to meet them. But there's so much more, so much. Like, I participate and see conversations that will never actually be had in the world, which is just a shame, because the world's not ready for it. And it's sad, but there's some amazing conversations out there. There's some amazing things happening in the love, intimacy, sex, and relationship space. And there's some beautiful, beautiful teachers out there. And it's just, yeah, it's a real shame that it's just not everywhere.
well,
Because I
it's
feel
it's
like
it's
people are craving it.
it's going to be because people feel the disconnect, and when they
Yeah,
feel the authenticity and the connection, everybody wants some of that.
yeah,
So that's why these conversations are so important, because
mm,
you can feel the connection and and the the magnitude of how it can change your whole way of living. Your whole way
absolutely.
of living, the way you feel about yourself, the way you relate to your partner, the way you relate to people around you. When you have your own presence and you bring that presence to other people, it really is a gift of love and service and honoring, both you and me and the planet as a whole. It's a beautiful thing,
Absolutely.
Rod. It's a beautiful
It is a
thing.
beautiful thing.
So
Yeah.
thank you for doing that with me today.
You're welcome. Yes, I know. I'm taking up all your time. Sorry.
No, no,
I'm a bit of
I
a
was just
talker.
thinking, oh, you got to go to karate soon.
I do. Yeah.
um,
I've got 30 minutes.
okay. My last question that I ask every
Mm.
guest is, how do you define real love? Because that's what this is all about.
Mm. Oh, that's an interesting question. It depends on, like, what's the context that you're asking it? Like, there's so many, like, love in lots of ways is such a polluted word. I love my friends. I love pizza. I love the dog. Like, I love my intimate partner. Love flows through me. So, like, love can be like anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
So how do you define it? And whatever context is most meaningful to you in this moment.
okay. For me, love, love is something that happens. Like, it's something that moves through me. It's something that's beyond what I know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think I have, in some ways, even the right to even talk about love, but at the same time, I talk about it all the time. So it's like, love is something that we can experience. For me, it's something that moves through us, but it's something that's bigger than a human or bigger than the human experience. So,
Mhm.
um, and I think love is something that we can create, that we can be a part of. perhaps is a better way of saying it. And it's something that we can allow to be present in our lives and the lives of those around us, if we're willing to do what it takes to allow it to move through us.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably my best description today.
So it's an allowance.
It's so many things, but yeah, it's something we can allow to move through our bodies. It's something that we can be a part of cultivating or creating, but I don't think it's a particular thing either. It's
Right.
like love is, it's so big.
So many things.
It's so many things at once, and in lots of ways. Like, you know, you could say the whole world is love, because love isn't just like the rainbows and unicorns. It is the dark, it is the shadow, because I think you touched on it before. We learn so much from that. We grow so much, and because of that, we can allow more love to move through us. We can be more loving human beings. But I think love, like to love as a human, is the radical acceptance of the person, the moment, of everything exactly as it is.
Wow.
And so if it was love in a relationship, it's radically accepting your partner exactly as they are and not needing them to be any different. And sometimes, like, that person is behaving in a way that hurts or is uncomfortable, or is they might be stuck or in a story or raging or whatever. But how do you show up and just allow that person to be exactly as they are and love them when they're like that? So that radical acceptance of someone as they are would be an example of what I think love is in, you know, a human relationship.
It's a beautiful thing.
Thanks. It's also really hard to practice.
Well, that's why you have to do your
That's up to
meditation
practice.
and your body work and your own practice, so that you can show up in that way.
Yeah,
And
that's
help
right.
others show up in that way as well.
Yeah.
Oh, what an amazing conversation. I want to have many, many more of these, Rod.
We can have more conversations. That's not a problem. There's so much to talk about.
So much to talk about. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
You're welcome.
Really
It's my pleasure.
an honor and a gift. Yeah.
Thank you.
How do people get in touch with you and find out more about your work?
It's sorry, Martina's just telling me you've got 10 minutes.
Yeah.
If just let Dawn know, I'll give her 10 minutes to reset before I jump online.
All right, we're still talking on the call.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
She wanted you to know that she will give you 10 minutes to reset if you want after this.
Thank you.
So people can get in contact with me. I do have a website, like rodgordon.com, and email info@rodgordon.com, or through my partner's business, Tantric Blossoming, which they can Google online. Yeah.
Lots of great ideas, articles, videos. I mean, so much beautiful material to help people become more and more aware. So everybody.
And I think Martina's site definitely has the most resources. So that would be tantricblossoming.com.au.
Yeah. I'll put them in the show notes for sure. And also, beautiful. So I know that, I mean, these are the conversations that I want to have. This is what I want to share with the world. And so please, for all of the listeners, please subscribe and share with your friends. I welcome any comments or questions, things that you want to know more about, things that you would like to explore more, because these help me come up with more things to talk about, more conversations to have, because this is all about, the bottom line is the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. That is why this work, your own development and your own personal growth is so important, so that you can show up for yourself and create that sense of safety and love and honor, both for yourself and for your partner. So if anyone would like more support and help in creating more real love in your life, you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Awakening with Dawn. And I look forward to having our conversation with Martina next week. And I look forward to having many, many more conversations with both of you, Rod. You're a beautiful, beautiful man, and you bring so much goodness and strength and authenticity and vulnerability. To me, you seem like this amazing balance of both masculine and feminine. So I thank you for showing up in the world as you do and as you are. Thank you, Rod.
Wow. Thank you. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, listeners, every day wake up to more real love. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.